Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Kakashi Trains Team 7 Like ANBU Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Team 7 had just finished their second exam with Kakashi. He still wasn't really impressed with any of them. He could see their potential, yes, but at the moment they were looking to be terrible shinobi. The idea of them reaching Chunin, let alone Junin, was laughable, not until they got their crap together. That meant he had to do things differently. It meant he had to do this opposite of what he'd hoped. If he tried it the original way, he'd probably end up with a dead genin or a potential missing nin. Hell, it might end up being both. Damn him and his pride. His pride wouldn't let him sit this one out. So, with an internal resigned sigh, he sat down in front of his bickering genin. Alright, listen up. He didn't speak loudly, but the bit of ki lacing his words got the trio to shut up rather impressively. He really hoped he didn't have to rely on that too often. Congratulations. You passed. They beamed, and he quite happily burst their bubble. But you still suck. His eye roved over them flatly. Majorly. Their reactions were predictable, and he let them stew a moment before interrupting them before they could build up any steam. Shut up. Ki was liberally used this time as well. It still worked wonders. Kami-sama, when he needed blissful silence, he would abuse this. He already knew he would. I know what all of your flaws are. They're plain as day, and sadly, you won't be able to advance in skill or rank unless you know and overcome them. He looked at all of them pointedly. Did you not learn a single thing during this test? Did you really fail to grasp all I was trying to teach you? His frown went unseen beneath his mask, but his lone eye was sharp with disapproval. I am disappointed. I was really hoping better from you. There were two subtle winces and one large one. He had to bite back another sigh. Naruto, what did I teach you within the first few minutes of our test? Naruto squinted at him, scowl firmly in place. Look underneath. Underneath the underneath, corrected Kakashi. As a ninja, it should be part of your daily mantra to expect everything to have multiple layers of deception. You should never take anything at face value or for granted. He looked meaningfully at his students. Everything. Sasuke looked furious. Naruto instantly became guarded even though his expression and body didn't move, and Sakura looked uneasy. He gave them a small eye smile. That also leads nicely to my second point. Because everything is deceptive, when you take measures to approach and handle them, every action you should take should be overkill. The trio blinked. What? Naruto was the only one who dared speak, but all of them were clearly befuddled. If you have a mission to sneak into an enemy stronghold to steal intel, you should be invisible. Period. Invisible by sight, sound, scent, and chakra. I don't care if it looks so easy that a new academy student could do it, you treat it like it is something so dangerously out of your league it's ridiculous. If you meet an opponent, always treat them as if they are S-rank criminals who would do anything and can do anything to kill you in less than a heartbeat. If you down an opponent, you will once again treat them like an S-rank criminal and do everything even remotely feasible to ensure they are completely incapacitated, be that either by death or binding them for interrogation. He looked at them sharply. Am I clear? When none of them immediately spoke up, his barked it out loudly again. Is that clear? Yes, sensei, chorused the three genin, startled and a bit alarmed. Good. He smiled. Now, since we've addressed two of my main issues with your misconceptions about being a shinobi, let's focus on the other main one. Deception is the core aspect of shinobi life, period. Understanding this, it means you should all be incorporating it into your daily lives as well. He clapped his hands, making them flinch. So, here's what we're going to do. This, he waved a hand between them, is your only safe zone. When we are safely training and are in a secure area, I will allow you to drop all pretense and be yourselves. Wah! Began Naruto, only for Kakashi to cut him off. Everywhere else, you will be putting up a front. He pinned them with a sharp stare. Everywhere. Sakura and Naruto swallowed thickly while Sasuke shifted slightly uneasily. Kakashi I smiled again. An example. Look at me. Your first impression of me was rather low, wasn't it? I seemed lazy and inept. Pulling out my book also makes me look like a distracted pervert. The genin looked like they got caught stealing a cookie from the cookie jar. Internally, Kakashi cackled. However, I am a highly skilled and deadly shinobi. I have an impressive mission list and have a nice reward in the bingo book. Misdirection and deception are everything. Even with my bingo book listing, a lot of foes don't take me seriously once they meet me in person. Why? Because of the persona I present. He held out his hands. So, before we do anything further as a team, we're going to break some of your bad habits and start forming new ones. First one, we're a team. We're going to sit here and each one of us is going to reintroduce ourselves. This time, however, we're going to tell our proper histories, including the deep dark secrets no one wants to share. When they looked like protesting, Kakashi blasted them with intense ki. This isn't up for debate. If Kakashi was being honest, he hated this idea as much as his students. It hurt to revisit the past. But he would be damned if they were going to keep playing this game of avoidance and dig themselves into deeper holes than they already were. So, despite his misgivings and the guilt that speared him ruthlessly, Kakashi shared his past. All the nitty-gritty, other than Naruto's parentage, was shared. His father, his team, Obito, everything. He even showed them his Sharingan. He made Sakura go next. He forced her to talk about her being a target for bullies, her reasons for bullying Naruto, and her obsession over Sasuke. He even got a shock to find out she had a weird version of split personality. When she finished, looking quite subdued and embarrassed, Kakashi turned to Sasuke. Sasuke had to be threatened ruthlessly, and only through nearly a literal pulling of teeth, Sasuke began spitting out his past with absolute venom. Kakashi just sat on a hog-tied Sasuke and smiled the entire time, still holding the pair of pliers he had threatened Sasuke with. The other two looked suitably horrified by Sasuke's tragic past, and as expected, threw their lot in with Sasuke when he went after Itachi. Kakashi nipped that in the bud when he asked if they were all that stupid. He pointed out again that deception was everything, and that the whole massacre seemed too staged. He told them the first thing they had to do, if they were serious about their quest, was to find out as much of the proper truth as they could and present it to him before he okayed their crusade. Naruto looked ill. Once the pause of budding camaraderie evaporated, he realized that it was his turn. Kakashi felt bone-weary looking at the anger and fear that warred in the boy's eyes, despite the boy trying to squint to hide it. But, Kakashi had no mercy. He gave the boy a pointed look, and slowly, Naruto spoke in the softest voice any had ever heard him use. As he lay out his past while staring at his hands ripping up the grass before him viciously, Kakashi watched Sasuke and Sakura truly begin to realize how messed up and challenging Naruto's life had been. Naruto still choked up over the Kyuubi. It took him several false starts, but by the end of it, the stunned silence was broken by a shamefaced Sakura and a subtle compassionate-looking Sasuke. In the end, Kakashi had to console his tearful genin and hope that his weird therapy session actually did some good. He did decide that it probably wasn't a good idea to let them go home tonight. Sitting in the silence would get to them. So, he made the night into an impromptu camping lesson. He instructed his team to grab their survival gear and meet him back here in 2 hours. Naruto was the first to question it. Your version or ours of 2 hours? Sakura snickered and Sasuke snorted. Kakashi I smiled. Well done. As a reward, it will be your version today. All three looked relieved as they each departed. As he watched their backs, he was gratified to see that they left together, unconsciously sticking close. He would fix that tomorrow, and remind them they couldn't do that once they left the training field. But for today, well, today, it felt like a flicker of hope. And, with a genuine hidden smile, Kakashi shunshined to the Hokage's office, so late that he was sure that everyone had already left hours ago. if he was to judge the fact the sun was starting to set. Meh. It was the fault of a broken mirror and having to circumvent all the bad luck he would have had if he didn't take proper preventative measures. Training started bright and early the next day. Sasuke, you're currently the most advanced skill-wise. You will be teaching the other two everything you know. Sasuke looked peeved. Why? How is that going to help me? 1. As they grow, you grow. 2. If all three of you don't learn the lesson I set you to, none of you advance to the next. We're a team. We train like it, we live like it. Kakashi smiled. Besides, by teaching them, you will come to understand what you know even better. He chuckled when Sasuke looked ready to protest again. If you don't believe me, prove it. In 1 month, if you haven't gotten any better in your techniques by teaching them, I will let you stop. However, if you're wrong, you fulfill your new role dutifully, without complaint, and you will also go out of your way to learn new things to bring back and teach them. Kakashi ignored Sasuke's irritable scowl and turned to Sakura. You, Sakura, are going to learn and teach the boys about the body. He almost laughed at her look of horror. You are going to study medical scrolls and learn how the body works inside and out. You will bring that knowledge and share it with the team. I want everyone to understand what each muscle group is, the major tendons, main arteries, and pressure points. I want all of you to be able to target any of these at any time. Sasuke will be teaching you how to wield Seven, Shuriken, and Kunai. Also Sakura, you will teach both your teammates basic first aid. I want you all able to set bones, apply proper splints and bandages, etc. It can save your lives. Kakashi turned to Naruto. The boy looked both excited and nervous, and Kakashi had to resist ruffling his hair. Naruto, you have a unique insight on people. There are a few things you've misunderstood, but overall, you're quite intuitive about people and their emotions. So, I want you to train Sasuke and Sakura about reading people. To better do this, I want you to make a handful of cage bunshin and have them hide in different locations around the village. Their job is to observe people as they go about their business. If someone looks suspicious or interesting, or has an expression you can't identify, have the clone follow them until they can identify it. This is to be a daily occurrence. Every day you wake up, make about 5 to 10 clones and have them hide in the village. You will start with civilians. Your goal is to learn these things while not being caught. As you improve, I will up the challenge to Genin, and then to Chunin, and so on. Naruto frowned. But, how will I know what they do? What if they get caught before they can come tell me what they've learned? Kakashi blinked. You missed the part about memory transfer, didn't you? Memory what? Kakashi sighed. Naruto, one of the second major reasons Kage Bunshin is a forbidden jutsu is because of the fact what a clone learns throughout their existence is transferred back to the creator when the clone is dismissed or destroyed. Meaning, you have a highly useful ability to scout and steal information without ever putting yourself in danger. Naruto's eyes were huge before a determinedly wicked gleam lit in them. Kakashi could swear the boy was silently cackling to himself. It made the older man shudder. Right. He clapped his hands. One last thing. As a team, you're all going to be practicing stealth. In order to do this, I have purchased 3 appropriate uniforms in order to help you improve. Stealth is going to be our biggest area of focus. If the enemy doesn't know you're there, you've pretty much either already won or gotten a huge advantage against them. We'll start with stealth training for now, and after that, Sasuke will take over to train you in the 3 main weapons I mentioned before. He pulled out a scroll and unsealed the uniforms he had spoken about. No way in hell. Naruto burst, looking horrified. Sasuke fully agreed with him, while Sakura simply sneered. Kakashi preened under their reactions. Here you are. 1 for each of you. He handed them to each of his students and internally cackled as they all acted like he was handing them venomous snakes. Now, hurry up and put them on. We only have so much time before we move on to the next bit of training. He cheerfully clapped his hands in encouragement. It's bright fluorescent pink, wailed Naruto. No way in hell. Not on your life. Naruto's orange jacket is less of an eyesore. Agreed Sakura. Hey, protested Naruto. Sasuke merely grunted in agreement, hand twitching with the intent to incinerate the terrible uniform with a great fireball. Kakashi smiled, gleefully dosing them with ki. Put them on. If you can get the item on this map without getting caught, you pass this lesson. If you get caught, you start from the training ground and do it again until you either get it right or time runs out. He chuckled menacingly as he tossed a scroll at their feet. Oh, and just so you know, you will repeat this lesson until you've reached the proficiency I expect out of you. Sakura looked ill, Sasuke looked murderous, and Naruto looked like someone just stole his freshly prepared ramen. Ah, thought Kakashi, today is looking to be a pretty awesome day too. Ino shrieked. Sasuke, what are you wearing? TCH. Sasuke pivoted sharply and headed back towards training ground 7. Naruto and Sakura didn't dare breath, lest Ino see them as well. Neither wanted the blonde gossip to have such juicy info. They valiantly ignored the fact half the village had probably seen them already and Ino's gossip would be old news at this rate. When Ino's horrified ranting voice was long since out of range, only then did Naruto and Sakura break their cover and hightail it back to the training grounds. Sasuke would be pissed they hadn't followed immediately, but he wouldn't say anything. He'd done the exact same thing when Sakura had hit Naruto and gotten the two of them spotted by a rather beautiful tomato vendor. Damn Kakashi. Well, that was a delightful morning of training. Kakashi smiled at his genin, who glared at him murderously. He didn't care. He happily took pictures of them all day, especially the more comedic times they'd gotten caught. Priceless. Sasuke, you're up. He tossed the raven-haired youth 3 scrolls. This should have all you need. Sasuke huffed but unsealed the kunai first. Grab 10 each. He moved over to the training logs and the straw dummy that Kakashi had set up when they'd been attempting stealth. When Sakura and Naruto stood about 20 paces away, Sasuke pointed to the straw dummy's torso. I remember your counts for throwing kunai from the academy. We'll start there. Aim for the torso. It's the biggest area to hit. Hey, why'd you say it like that? Interrupted Naruto. Sasuke barely suppressed a sneer. Because neither of you are good enough yet for more precise throws. Once your aim improves, the target area will change. He moved to stand beside them and gestured Sakura forward. You go first. She took a determined stance, shifted, and threw. She completely missed. Sasuke grit his teeth, counted to 10, and exhaled slowly. You're not flicking your wrist correctly. Do it again. The next 2 hours were a steady grind on Sasuke's patience. Twice he nearly, accidentally, stabbed his teammates. Maybe make that 3. Day 3, Naruto had a peculiar expression on his face. Kakashi-sensei. Yes Naruto. I'm confused about something. Oh. Kakashi gave him a small head tilt to continue. Well. Naruto scratched his head. I was watching, and well, he grimaced, how come they don't get rejected? Blank stares from the rest of the team. Can you explain further? Naruto frowned. Why aren't they getting hit or turned down when they ask someone else on a date? They just say yes, the first time. Kakashi was a little horrified that Naruto truly seemed serious about his question. For a moment he could only stare at the blonde, and both Sakura and Sasuke were doing the same. Naruto, Kakashi grasped for words. Do you know what the difference between a crush and love is? Naruto just tilted his head in confusion. Difference? Aren't they the same? Kakashi really wished Kushina or Minato were here to do this. He really didn't want to have this talk. There's a big difference. A crush is when you admire someone for a few of their traits. You don't really know that person, and you are attracted to the idea of them. It is usually superficial. Follow me so far. Naruto frowned. Sorta. Yes. Well, love is more profound. Kakashi internally winced at the pathetic attempt, and Naruto's confused expression only deepened. Love is stronger than a crush, more meaningful. Love is when you deeply care about a person, faults and all. When you love someone, You know they aren't perfect. You know all their hopes, dreams, and biggest fears. But, despite all their shortcomings, you still love them completely, for being exactly who they are, flaws and all. Love is best when it is reciprocated. A quick glance at Naruto's expression and he clarified, when love is returned equally. Naruto frowned at the grass, visibly turning things over in his head. So, when you have a crush, it's more shallow. He grimaced at the wording, but he really couldn't find anything else that fit. And when you love someone, it's deeper. In essence, yes. Kakashi scratched his cheek through his mask, feeling incredibly awkward about this whole topic. So, when you have a crush on someone, it's normal to get rejected. Well, not all the time. Kakashi hummed. Sometimes a crush can develop into love. So it's okay to keep asking so it can turn into love. Kakashi blinked. No, it's not. That only serves to irritate the person being asked and insults them. Naruto looked startled. Insult them? Naruto, if a person rejects you after you ask them on a date, it's very rude to keep pestering them. Not only that, you're insulting them because you're clearly not respecting their feelings. By ignoring their rejection, you are being demeaning by implying that your feelings are more important than theirs. Naruto looked like someone just punched him in the gut. Kakashi was surprised that Sakura seemed to catch on to the lesson by turning a very unhealthy green color. Sasuke looked like he was trying not to hope too much that Sakura was taking the conversation to heart and wouldn't be pestering him for dates anymore. The raven-haired boy was also looking at him with something akin to hero worship. Such a look did not fit the emo boy's face. It was disturbing and Kakashi wished someone like Kurenai had given Sakura this talk, not him. Kakashi cleared his throat to knock everyone out of their weird funk. Naruto, if you ask someone on a date, only ask once. If they reject you, move on. If they end up changing their mind later down the road, they already know you're interested and can come find you to ask you instead. Understand? Naruto nodded vigorously. Thanks Kakashi-sensei. Sakura sneezed, startling the poor woman she'd been discreetly following. A rather impressive feat considering Sakura's bright pink attire. Twin groans from either side of her sent the poor civilian screaming down the road about ninja stalking her. Sakura looked sheepishly at Sasuke and Naruto as they shambled out of their respective hiding spots. Sorry. Naruto sighed. We were so close. Sasuke just grunted and started heading back towards the training grounds. Sakura. Naruto shifted uneasily, hands hidden behind his back. She blinked. Both of Naruto's teammates were still a bit surprised that Naruto's natural state of loudness was actually quite soft. His more boisterous personality had, to Kakashi's glee, been a complete and utter front. All of them, Kakashi included, were very happy the blonde was more subdued now when they were training out of sight. It made for a more pleasant atmosphere to focus. I wanted to apologize. I didn't realize I was being rude when I kept asking you out. I'm sorry. He winced. You're amazing and I really wanted a chance to see more of that. He gave her a faint smile. But I got lucky. We're on a team. That's awesome. So, as an apology, here. He thrust a potted plant into her startled hands. It's supposed to be good for medicinal purposes. He scratched behind his head. It wasn't quite big enough to give to you last week after I realized how big of an idiot I'd been. The way he said that made her pause. You grew this. He nodded, beaming at her. Yeah, I've had this little guy for a while. He gave it a wistful look. Before the orphanage kicked me out, one of the caretakers made me work in the garden a lot. I really liked it, even though I had to pretend to hate it or he wouldn't have let me do it anymore. Sakura's eyes were suspiciously moist. Thanks Naruto. Her voice was a little choked up too. She cleared her throat. Maybe instead of yeah, no. She winced, still unable to actually say, date, to the very boy she'd loathed asking her for the past couple years. Maybe we could be friends instead. His blue eyes widened comically, and for the first time, his exuberance wasn't met with a wince as he jumped and fist pumped. Instead, Sakura laughed. Kakashi, standing unobtrusively to the side with Sasuke, smiled beneath his mask. Sasuke felt a weird wiggle in his gut. He wasn't sure what it meant, but it bothered him until Kakashi stole their attention. Well, why don't you put your new gift somewhere safe, Sakura, and we'll get back to the tree climbing we were doing yesterday. She nodded sharply, dashing to their gathered pile of gear by the memorial stone, using that moment to discreetly wipe at her eyes. Having a friend like Naruto, that would be nice. She smiled softly to herself as she gently fingered one of the leaves of the plant. Kakashi-sensei. Sasuke's eyes were sharp. How feasible is it to find a doppelganger for a cat? His face was covered in quite an impressive display of red angry slashes. The cat carrier chained to the ground was filled with hissing that was randomly interrupted by short yells. Kakashi winced internally. To be honest, it wouldn't do any good. Why? Sakura and Naruto were hovering a safe distance away from their teammate. The raven-haired boy's KI was actually a little impressive, and Kakashi preened a bit. The daimyo's wife is not gentle when handling the target. Kakashi's eyes flicked to the glowing eyes in the cat carrier. You aren't the first to try that trick. The third genin team did it after their first run-in with the beast. However, because of the way the woman, and her predecessor, handles them, all of the cats end up gaining this vicious notoriety. He shrugged. Unless you find a way to change her habits, genin will continue to be subjected to returning it to its owner. The boy silently pondered that a moment before he looked up at Kakashi solemnly. I need my Sharingan. Kakashi blinked. Pardon, if I can set a permanent layered genjutsu, I can change her behavior, the boy said flatly. Kakashi felt his jaw drop open a bit in shock. That was actually a rather brutal but ingenious solution. Maybe we can accomplish both. Kakashi smiled. We'll have to find Kurenai. She's the village's leading genjutsu mistress. Kakashi grinned. Also, speaking of illusions, I want each of you to start practicing it by using henge around town until someone dispels it or you run out of chakra. Kakashi performed the technique, turning into a chibi version of himself. It's a very useful skill, and you should all be more than proficient with it by the time we take any serious missions out of the village. Naruto frowned, squinting at Kakashi a good 10 seconds before something clicked. He gasped sharply and points an accusing finger up where Kakashi's face normally sits. You are a pervert. This just proves it. Kakashi and his teammates blink at him. What? If it's just an illusion, when you turn into a kid, you're getting everyone to stare at your crotch. Accused Naruto. A full beat of silence followed before a puff of smoke reveals the proper-sized Kakashi. Right. New rule. All transformations will be height-appropriate. Sasuke smothered a snicker while Sakura looked indecisive whether she wanted to rage at everyone for the oversight or thank Kakashi for the new rule. My, what goes where? Squealed Naruto, making a large flock of birds take off from the surrounding area. Kakashi chuckled to himself and turns another page, glad he'd done the underhanded thing and let Sakura ensure that all of his genin knew the birds and the bees bit. He'd have to be extra alert, however. He was pretty sure she was going to try and murder him for it afterwards. 30 minutes later, his predictions proved correct. His genin were all beet red as they shambled into the clearing he'd been waiting for them. Sasuke and Naruto both appear traumatized. However, as soon as Sakura laid eyes on him, ki burst from her in an almost terrifying fashion. He actually got nervous. Taijutsu practice, he said a little too swiftly. He clapped and then points at Sasuke. You and Sakura are going to spar first. I'll walk Naruto through his stances again to make sure he's not slipping out of his new style. He smiled as he quickly guides Naruto away from his other two genin. Sasuke gaped at him in utter betrayal as Sakura let out a threatening snarl seconds before she launched herself at the only available target. He'll be fine, Kakashi mentally insisted. Sasuke is the most talented of the three at taijutsu. Sakura will just give him a better challenge today. He ignored the sound of Sasuke's rather terrified yelp when Sakura audibly breaks something with an impressive snap behind them. Kakashi quickened his pace, almost bodily shoving Naruto to move faster. They'll be fine, Kakashi mentally repeated. Sakura shyly handed Sasuke a container. Tomato salad, she blurted quickly at his wary look. She grimaced. As an apology, for yesterday. She ducked her head. And for pestering you for dates. She glanced around them. I know the food here sucks. She wrinkled her nose at the sterile smell of the hospital. Not only had she spent her fair share of time here after Kakashi's more grueling sessions, but he also had her sign up to volunteer 16 hours a week. Sakura was mortified, and a bit prideful if she were honest, about managing to send Sasuke to the hospital from a taijutsu spar. Kakashi had explained that she'd used her chakra unconsciously to enhance her strength when she'd gotten angry. He also explained that she was going to start new training to improve it, mentioning offhandedly that it was something Tsunade was famous for. Sasuke opened the container and felt an odd warmth when he realized it was indeed a tomato salad, with all the ingredients he preferred too. He looked up to find Sakura fidgeting nervously, clearly expecting him to say something nasty. He winced slightly. He was getting better, but he still said mean things without thinking. He was tired of seeing his teammates waiting for his more horrid remarks. It made him feel like he was kicking puppies. He was a little surprised she managed to wiggle the date comment in. He hadn't really expected her to really let go of her infatuation with him. If she stopped pestering him, it would be a massive improvement, but he had valiantly kept the hope of it truly happening from growing too big. He couldn't handle it if said hope was ruthlessly dashed. This was a pleasant change. He knew she wouldn't put any further effort into the apology. The honest regret and self-loathing in her eyes spoke volumes. He also knew she didn't want it to seem like a cop-out, an insincere replication of Naruto's example. She was barely holding herself together, hoping he was as observant as usual and could pick up on the truth and full emotion behind her simple, almost belated, apology. Really, there was a lot she was not saying, but the way she was saying it spoke the loudest. He felt the small smile pull at his lips, and he couldn't quite force himself to suppress it. He smiled a little more when she met his gaze and saw his response there, and her shoulders visibly relaxed and her smile less forced. Thanks, he said. He grabbed the supplied chopsticks. The food here does suck. Sasuke was thankful that Naruto had taught them so much about the subtleties of expressions. He didn't like talking, and he felt better he could express himself just fine this way. It was nice when he didn't have to say anything at all and his teammates still understood him. He was really glad he got put on Team 7. He'd never say it aloud, but he was trying hard to show them without having to. Hello my cute little genin, cheered Kakashi. As was the norm, his genin stopped whatever personal training they were engaged in while waiting for him. They'd, thankfully, been quick on the uptake. The 2 to 3 hours he was late were to be used for personal training, things he knew they wanted to focus on that they could do on their own. Kakashi-sensei greeted the trio. Good news. We're going to be working on traps today and the various kinds there are. He grinned wickedly. To start, you're going to, in essence, prank people. Kakashi wasn't at all surprised that Sakura and Sasuke immediately looked to Naruto. The trick, Kakashi continued, is to, of course, have maximum efficiency and effect. It takes subtlety, creativity, and clever application to hit the target you want to and not accidentally catch someone else. This is where we are going to start focusing your talents on your fellow comrades and why we are doing so in the form of pranking. Pranking is basically the safe version of lethal traps. He grinned. And if you get caught, that means your stealth and evasion skills still need work. His genin grimaced, clearly recalling the bright pink monstrosities they still had to wear. Also, he said, drawing their attention again, I have a test for you. If you accomplish it, I'll ask the Hokage for a C rank mission. Kakashi almost cooed at their adorable looks of eager excitement. The challenge is, to trick one of my fellow Junin. They blinked. How so? Naruto asked cautiously. Kakashi shrugged. If you can pull a fast one on a Junin, with me as witness, and the Junin doesn't catch on, you pass. The three exchanged pensive looks. Sasuke's eyes narrowed in determination. Deal. Kakashi clapped. Perfect. Now, let's begin today's lesson. Iruka spluttered as an entire gallon of paint dropped on his head. As he was trying to wipe it from his eyes, a faint hissing noise drew his attention. He froze, turning just in time to see a timed paper tag finish burning, and the air was suddenly full of feathers and glitter. Iruka whirled, righteous anger filling him as he stepped forward to find the culprit. Only to hear the very unfortunate sound of a tripwire going off and an unhealthy amount of eggs bombarded him from behind. Iruka was cursing too loudly to hear the faint clicking sound nearby. Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto were trembling with barely contained mirth. Sakura pocketed the camera that they used as proof to show Kakashi their success. All three of them were well aware that the silver-haired Junin would use it gleefully as blackmail when the need arose. He'd already conned someone called Anko into teaching them all about the various types of poisons and how to tell the differences in how they affected the body. It was even more amusing that she clearly wasn't sure if Kakashi had pranked her or if some other Junin did. Naruto was still proud of that one. Kakashi had deemed it too challenging for them yet to target her, and Naruto was bound and determined to prove him wrong. In payment of succeeding, Kakashi had to teach them a new jutsu. Naruto, being as devious as he was with pranks and frightening insightful considering the difficulty of the odd mission, had chosen to prank Anko's favorite food. He'd noticed the pattern when his clones were out and about hidden through the village. Anko always made repeated stops at the dango shop. It was on par with his visits to Ichiraku's. Hence, she would let her guard down because she never took the time to check her food. She'd been going there for too long. It was a prime way to target her. This also had the added benefit of creating a paranoia about eating food that they themselves didn't make. Team 7 now consistently, and discreetly, checked their food for toxins and poisons whenever they ate out. Naruto ended up having to do it a lot more than the other two for obvious reasons. Sasuke tapped his teammates on the shoulder and gestured at his watch. It was time to meet Kakashi. The trio left without Iruka even realizing they'd been there. Ah, perfect. Kurenai, Kakashi called, waving her over. Said woman paused, turning to look at the silver-haired Junin. Her team turned with her. Kakashi, said man smiled. This is perfect timing. One of my students had a wonderful suggestion for a genjutsu, and I was hoping that you would be willing to assist. Kurenai couldn't help but lift a single eyebrow as Kakashi and his genin joined her and her team. Kakashi was a weird mystery she still wasn't quite sure how to deal with. This just added to his oddness, for he'd never come to her for anything at all in the past. He was a notorious prodigy, and him asking for help was like expecting hell to freeze over. What did they have in mind? She asked, partially wary. Sasuke. Kakashi nudged the boy. Sasuke grunted, shooting the man a glare before stepping forward. I wanted to know about layering genjutsu and if you can make a genjutsu permanent. Kurenai blinked. That was certainly a loaded request. It took her a second before she started breaking down the concept of genjutsu and explaining the theories of how it worked and the various ways they could be triggered. The pink-haired one looked like she was absorbing everything with a faint glimmer of awe, eyes darting with mortifying consistency to the raven-haired boy she was speaking to. The blonde looked dazed and a bit bored. When Kurenai finally wound down, even though she'd barely scratched the surface of her knowledge, both teams looked equally restless. If genjutsu is all an illusion, began the blonde one, sounding completely confused. Does that make Henja genjutsu too? Kurenai couldn't help smiling a bit, missing the curious flicker of Kakashi's subtle glance at the blonde. No. They are completely different. Genjutsu target people's perceptions, while Henge just puts a bubble of chakra around your body to change your image. They only share one way of disrupting them, and that is to cause a fluctuation in your chakra. At his still confused look, she smiled a bit more. Look, this is a genjutsu. She put her hands together and cast a very simple genjutsu, one that made it look like it was getting dark out already. His teammates broke out of it fairly quickly, but she had to assist him. When he was free of it, he blinked at the bright sky in shock and a bit of awe. She felt her shoulders square a bit in pride. And, if you pay attention, you can see how different the henge is. She turned into an exact replica of the blonde. Instead of getting the spark of understanding she was expecting, the blonde genin gasped and pointed an accusing finger at where her head actually was supposed to be. "You're a pervert," he screamed. "Don't come near me," he wailed, scrambling away from her like she was going to suddenly attack him, his antics drawing quite the attention from passers-by. She was absolutely flabbergasted when Sasuke looked equally terrified and backpedaled with the blonde. The pink-haired girl looked absolutely scandalized. "And I looked up to you," she spat in disgust. "You shouldn't do that to Sasuke." Kakashi looked downright furious. "I'm incredibly disappointed in you, Kurenai. Your reputation about hating perverts is well known. It shocks me that it appears it was just a front. Stay away from my genin until you can control yourself." Kurenai and her team gaped at them in absolute stunned disbelief. "WHWH, what are you talking about?" she gasped at last as she watched him gather his team and begin walking away quickly. He shot her a disgusted look over his shoulder. "Henge is an illusion." His eye glanced meaningfully where her head was supposed to be before making a very clearly point to look at her illusion's lower abdomen. "Come on team, I'll buy everyone lunch too, forget what just happened." As they walked away, the genin trembling in horror, Kurenai felt the mortification of donning understanding filter through her shock. Her henge dropped instantly. She felt positively ill. Kiba grunted. "I don't get it. What are they going on about?" Hinata spluttered, beat red, and ducked into her jacket, inching slightly away from Kurenai. Shino's expression was hidden, but he too took a subtle step away from his mentor. Kurenai just stared at the Inuzuka. She couldn't even form a coherent thought, let alone a verbal sentence. Unbeknownst to her, Team 7 was shaking with barely concealed laughter as they walked out of sight. Kakashi squeezed Naruto's shoulder and shot him a proud smile. "That was brilliant, Naruto. I'm very proud of you." His eye roved over his other two genin. "And you two were right on K. Well done." He steered them towards the mission office. "It seems like I owe you 3 AC rank." Sasuke and Sakura both gave the blonde a discreet fist bump. That had to be the best unplanned prank they'd ever pull. Team 7's meeting of their new client, Tazuna, had gone about as Kakashi expected. Team 7's fake personas had worked like a charm, and even the Hokage gave Kakashi an almost imperceptible glance. Kakashi returned the look with a confident eye smile. This only earned him a slightly longer glance. Kakashi could be a royal pain in that which he was totally proud of, but even he didn't mess with Hiruzen too much. It would be bad for his health, really. Hiruzen knew exactly what Team 7 was capable of. Kakashi had given covert reports directly to the aged Hokage, hidden behind heavy silencing seals and shuttered windows. Not even the old man's guard detail were in the room. No one knew what Team 7 was worth but Kakashi and Hiruzen. And Kakashi reveled in it. Shortly after departing from Tazuna, the team met up at their training ground. Kakashi leaned up against a tree. "Thoughts?" "He's lying," Naruto said flatly, crossing his arms. "Oh." Sakura pushed Kakashi. Sakura rolled her eyes at him. Nervous behavior, eyes avoiding ours and darting down and to the left when we talked about bandits. He was also sweating more profusely than he should be for the mild weather and the lack of exertion, despite the fact he's been drinking for likely most of the day. He pushed too much about our ability to protect him, even if he did buy into our act. The mission is probably higher than AC rank because it probably involves other ninja. Kakashi I smiled. Well done. Now, why can't we go back to the Hokage and get it properly ranked in a suitable C rank instead? Naruto huffed. Because the old man already knows there's something going on. Plus, it would look bad if we accused a client of lying without proper proof to back it up. It also wouldn't help our business to turn him down for a supposed C rank. Not to mention we can't afford to send extra ninja on every mission we're suspicious of, both due to finances and manpower. Meaning, the silver-haired Junin turned to Sasuke. Sasuke's eyes widened slightly. This is a test. It's to see if 1. We notice what's wrong, and 2. If we can handle the unexpected. Bingo. Kakashi grinned. Knowing all that, what are you going to do? Pack accordingly, muttered Naruto, squinting towards town as if already mentally running through a supply list. Be more alert, added Sasuke. We're potentially dealing with other ninja that might go up in rank as we progress. Medical supplies, body storage scrolls, proper prisoner bindings, and set up a few plans of attack and defense, finished Sakura. Naruto paused in his mental list. Sensei, if you can summon animals through seals and then hand signs, can you summon people? Naruto scratched his cheek. I mean, if we can, why aren't we just sending prisoners directly to T&I? It would save us a lot of trouble if. Kakashi interrupted him with a rather maniacal-sounding cackle. Naruto, have I told you how much I love how your brain works? I smiled at his genin. I have somewhere to be. Meet me here 30 minutes before we're supposed to be at the gate. We'll go through some last-minute checks. It never hurts to have your teammates double-check your supplies. And then he was gone. All 3 genin stared at the dissipating smoke in a long drawn-out silence. I can't decide if I'm excited or terrified by what I just did, Naruto finally confessed. Sasuke grunted. Look at the bright side. We'll have proof who we beat up. Maybe there will be some bounties. Sakura gave them both a devilish grin. Plus, imagine how baffled everyone will be because we still look completely incompetent. Even if we only send 1 or 2 genin in, we're going to confuse the hell out of everyone. The boys shared her grin. You're late, slurred Tazuna as he pointed an accusing finger at them. Naruto squinted at him, looking affronted. No, we're not. We totally said 10:30. The drinks go into your head, old man. Tazuna paused, turning a doubtful gaze to the rest of the team. Sakura groaned at Naruto's antics but nodded apologetically. Sasuke grunted in irritation. Kakashi just kept smiling at him. Tazuna shuddered under the Junin's unflappable stare. Tazuna huffed, pivoting to head out the gates. Fine. Whatever. Let's just get moving. Kakashi discreetly ruffled Naruto's blonde locks while Sasuke and Sakura once again exchanged discreet fistbumps behind the drunk's back. Best team ever, Kakashi thought as he trailed behind his bickering genin. Tazuna came to an unexpected halt in the middle of the trail. Team 7 immediately paused to look at him. Is something wrong? Asked Sakura, having played the role of kind mediator to her insufferable teammates' antics and the client. Tazuna pointed dumbly at the chaotic mess of the trail around them. When he'd last passed this way, it hadn't looked like this at all. Currently, it looked like a rather messy battle had taken place on the rather innocent-looking road. What happened? Team 7 blinked, exchanged looks, and then turned to Kakashi as one. The silver-haired Junin simply shrugged. Ma, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's been this way for a while. No, it wasn't, roared Tazuna. Kakashi waved a hand airily. Sure it was. We haven't had time to send a team to clean it up yet is all. I came through here 3 days ago. It wasn't like this. Tazuna insisted. Kakashi shook his head. No, I'm pretty sure it was. The Hokage was muttering up a storm about having to put up the money to send a team of genin to fix it. You're wrong. Tazuna, forgetting he was dealing with well-trained killers, stomped right up to Kakashi and started shouting in his face. It was all nice and pretty. Plus, this looks like it just happened this morning. Kakashi gave him a lazy look. Why would you be coming this way? The only way this road goes is to Wave. Exactly. Burst Tazuna. I came from Wave and it wasn't like this. Kakashi's lazy expression snapped into a fierce one instantly. Funny you should say that. Aren't you hiring us to get you safely back to Wave? Why would you come directly from Wave only to hire us to take you right back? That seems rather wasteful, doesn't it? Tazuna's bluster failed him as he gaped under Kakashi's sharp glare. He fidgeted and let out a shaky chuckle. Ah, well, I mean, when I came through here a few weeks ago. Yeah, see, I'm not buying that. Explain. Kakashi stared him down, causing Tazuna to swallow thickly. Tazuna burst like a soap bubble, making a large scene about Gato, his aims to build a bridge to freedom, and how his family would be all alone if he died. Kakashi almost rolled his eye at the man's poor attempts at manipulation. His team was already stuck with the mission. They weren't going to be turning back, nor would they be getting help. But they all had their parts to play. He turned to his genin, making a show of being against continuing. Naruto did his job perfectly, ranting about it being their duty and the right thing to do. Sakura played the unsure card well, and Sasuke's monosyllabic response was icing on the cake. As the team cheerfully continued on their way, Tazuna mingled in with obvious relief. Kakashi glanced back at the crater-pocked road, charred trees, and broken tree limbs. Naruto was terrifying, Kakashi concluded. He'd had the short blonde send out a team of hanged clones hours before they were to leave. Naruto had somehow managed to hide explosive notes on each of them. The tricky bastard even made extra clones henge into random objects for his people-hanged clones to carry. A nifty trick they'd discovered, that as chakra constructs it meant the clones could quite literally bend their shape to the form they wished, so were a properly transformed object and not an illusion. An unassuming group of 5 had walked this trail, and quite literally an entire army ended up beating the crap out of 2 unsuspecting Chunin. The 2 missing nin were lucky they survived, if barely. Sadly, Kakashi was pretty sure that the 2 Chunin had a friend or 2 nearby. The 2 Chunin Naruto described, and Ibiki confirmed, were ones suspected of working with Zabuza. Ah well, his little genin would learn some valuable stuff on this mission. It would be quite the show. Kakashi's sweat dropped. He really hadn't expected Naruto's little trick to work twice. The fact he'd managed to actually injure Zabuza was quite an accomplishment. Bad thing. Zabuza was furious. The singed and clearly battered man came charging down the path in an absolute rage, frothing at the mouth about orange-clad punks pretending to be ninja. Naruto did not help matters by cackling like a hyena, taunting the eyebrowless bastard for being so pathetic. Kakashi kinda couldn't blame him, but Zabuza's enraged swings of his massive sword were getting a bit harder to dodge or deflect. Tazuna hadn't helped either when he'd shouted, "I knew it. You made that mess, didn't you?" and then pointed accusingly at his team. His team did a good job ignoring the civilian. Bad thing. They started taunting the missing nin too. Sasuke even went so far as to tell the man to his face that he wasn't worth the effort if the dobi could hit him. The boy crossed his arms and smirked at the older nin. Zabuza became apoplectic, forced into incoherent sputtering as his ki flooded the area. Kakashi was just about to panic that his idiot little genin was about to become a smear on the ground, when suddenly, Zabuza wasn't standing there anymore. Kakashi blinked. Tazuna blinked. Zabuza's head, sticking out of the dirt in a very familiar fashion, began spouting some very creative and very foul curses. Right until a rather fearsome-looking Sakura came barreling forward with a war cry and smashed a fist in the man's head so hard only his hair was now visible above ground. Naruto appeared from underground, clapping his hands together to remove the dirt from them. Scroll ready. Sasuke walked forward, unfurled a scroll, and bit his thumb. Naruto squawked when he realized Sasuke was already in motion. He performed a swift hand seal before grabbing Zabuza's hair and yanking the man out of his earthly prison. With very little fanfare, Sasuke ran his thumb along the contents of the scroll, which started to glow, before dropping it unceremoniously on top of Zabuza. The unconscious missing nin disappeared in a poof, scroll and all. Just as Kakashi opened his mouth to speak, a despairing cry filled the air as a second ninja came barreling out of the treetops. Feeling a bit put out by being outdone by his own genin, Kakashi reacted swiftly. In a flurry of movement and a subtle lightning jutsu, A masked mist ninja lay on the ground where Zabuza's head used to be. Kakashi recognized the hunter mask, and was just about to identify it, when Sasuke dropped a second summoning scroll on the unconscious boy and made him disappear too. Kakashi wanted to groan at the political nightmare the boy had probably just incited. Instead, he turned to a flabbergasted bridge builder and cheerfully waved at the path ahead. It looks like our path is clear. Ready to see your family again. The silver-haired Junin would let Hiruzen deal with whatever mess his genin just created back home. Kakashi was happily not present in Leaf to deal with it, after all. That thought put a bounce in his step as he began whistling a jaunty tune, making Naruto complain loudly, Sasuke to glare, and Sakura to wince and try and engage Tazuna in conversation again. None of his team were impressed with Inari. Kakashi willfully let Naruto berate the brat loudly before the blonde happily informed the kid that they'd already gotten rid of 4 big tough ninja already, so no pathetic greedy little worm was going to touch them. In fact, Naruto's mischievous grin should have been ample warning. You could say it's all because he lost his head. Kakashi snorted tea through his mask. Sasuke guffawed before trying to smother his laughter. It made it sound like he was a host of dying animals. Sakura snarked. A lot. Tazuna loudly groaned before taking a rather impressive pull from his drink. I'm never hiring ninja again. PFT. We did our job. Even when you lied about it. Naruto jabbed an accusatory finger at the old man. You're here, ain't ya? Tazuna scowled back. Gato's still out there, ain't he? Sasuke scoffed, having recovered from his death throes. Not for long. A long pause followed. Kakashi hummed. Well, accidents do happen, he remarked blithely. Kakashi tilted his head to the side. He stared a moment before flopping his head to the other side. He scratched his masked jaw. What, exactly, did you do? His genin grinned at the chaos before them. Nothing much, started Naruto. Really? We hardly did anything, added Sasuke. Oh, asked Kakashi, moving his head aside as a pitchfork flew past. Yup. Sakura popped the P as she rocked back and forth on her toes. She giggled. We only started a riot. All 3 genin snickered. Yeah. No, for their own good. Indeed, Kakashi watched in fascination as the civilians of Wave tore into Gato and his minions with a bloodthirsty roar. Ah, so we can honestly tell the Hokage that we didn't lift a finger, yes? Asked Kakashi. Sakura was impressively fiendish as she grinned down at their combined results. Exactly. Kakashi merely hummed with a lazy nod. He paused. Whose idea? Sasuke's, was Sakura's immediate reply. I helped refine it, so we couldn't get into trouble for interfering with another country's issues. Henge is the best, by the way. Her gaze flickered to him with a cheeky grin before she looked back at the mess they'd created. Her eyes gleamed a bit. Naruto was brilliant. She looked like she might swoon. His vitriol, his verve, his charisma, they were eating out of his palm. She shook herself. Really, Sasuke and I barely had to do anything to help psych them up. His genin were becoming monsters. Kakashi beamed at them, ruffling each of their heads with affection. They were perfect. Kakashi yelped and barely dodged an entire brace of shuriken. When the onslaught ended, he cautiously poked his head around the doorframe to spot a huffing and puffing Hiruzen glaring at him murderously. You are despicable, panted the Hokage. Do you have any idea how much damned paperwork you've given me? Just you. He growled dangerously, clearly debating about finding out exactly what Team 7 had been up to or if he might continue to try and flay the silver-haired Junin alive. Ma, it can be that. Hiruzen snarled and pointed to the left. Kakashi staggered, eyes nearly popping from his skull. There, sitting demurely on the floor, were five floor-to-ceiling stacks of papers. Kakashi couldn't help but let out a weak chuckle and look as non-guilty as possible. It really wasn't working. Kakashi wasn't as good at it as his cute little genin. He'd watched them flat out steal from someone, get caught doing it, lie through their teeth about it, and then look so pathetic and innocent that the man totally let them go and gave them more. And they'd done it. Just because. Kakashi decided he wouldn't admit to the Hokage, which he was ready to do prior to nearly becoming a walking pincushion courtesy of Hiruzen, that the whole mission had seemed anticlimactic, considering how his genin had pretty much owned the whole damn thing start to finish. Instead, all the Junin managed to get out was, "My genin are adorable." Kakashi wisely fled as Hiruzen roared and a hail of kunai followed him out the door. Hiruzen's secretary was pale and shaking, hidden beneath her happily solid metal desk. "I'm quitting. I'm totally quitting. Beer-chan is a total liar. This place is a kami-forsaken nightmare." Kakashi strolled casually into the training field. It instantly put his cute little genin on high alert. "Who's invading?" Sasuke demanded swiftly. "Are you injured?" Kakashi blinked. Right. He really needed to rely less on Shunshin. He cleared his throat. "Ah. No one. Or at least, no one today. I have heard rumors though." Sasuke put on his focus face. "Really? It just made the kid look broody. Naruto loved to pick at him for it if he did it too long." Kakashi waved him off. "Not now. We'll get to that when it becomes more pertinent." He rolled his shoulders. "I took my time getting here today because I didn't want anyone thinking I had anything to know about why the ANBU headquarters are suddenly a bright fluorescent pink." He paused. "So, he gave them all an eye smile." Naruto shrugged. "The minions did it." Kakashi's blink was slow. "Pardon. The minions," Sakura repeated. "They're very handy, you know." She gave him a very respectful nod. "I understand now why Junin enjoy having genin to train. Wonderful use of delegation when you want something done." Sasuke, of all people, was nodding along seriously. "I'm really glad that Naruto decided to share them. We get twice as much done and we have perfect volunteers when we're trying out new rope tricks." Kakashi stared. He counted to 10. He blinked. "Right. Minions." He sighed. "What are you talking about?" Naruto pointed to the side. "Since Iruka-sensei took a B-rank mission to escape all the pranks being pulled on him, the new teach is pretty crappy. We've been keeping these four busy." Kakashi felt his jaw drop a little in surprise. There, wriggling on the ground, completely hogtied in a very impressive fashion, were four young academy students. He almost guffawed when he saw both the esteemed grandson and the second Hyuga princess. He still sniggered. "How long have they been like that?" Sakura hummed. "About 15 minutes. If they don't get out in 30, we'll untie them and they fail the test for the day." She shrugged. "We don't want to injure them by keeping them tied too long." She winced and rubbed her wrists. "I still remember how long it took me to get feeling back in my fingers when Sasuke and Naruto got in an argument and forgot I was tied up." She shuddered. "Hence, guinea pigs." She shot her two sheepish-looking teammates a dirty look. "And I play supervisor." Naruto chuckled and gave her an apologetic look before turning back to their sensei. "We convinced the minions to help us on our assigned project." He gave Kakashi a dirty look. "Because you intentionally put that darn necklace right next to the ANBU headquarters for our stealth training, I knew we'd never make it unless we got a distraction going." Kakashi felt a tingle run down his spine. "You pranked the entire ANBU headquarters as a distraction." He felt a little lightheaded. Sasuke was positively glowing with pride. "The minions did well. Had them henge to hide their identities and then set them loose. They passed the test with flying colors." Sakura cackled. "Do you have any idea how amazing it is to give primed paint-filled explosive notes to academy students?" She grinned up at him viciously. "And how much ANBU ignore people with civilian-sized chakra? More so with children." Naruto rolled his eyes. "Yeah, we almost got caught because you were practically squealing about adorable lil minions." Sasuke grunted. "No kidding. I had to forcibly drag you away or you would still be there cooing over the mess." Sakura huffed and crossed her arms. "It was glorious. I wanted good pictures to show sensei. I think 50 pics is overkill," deadpanned Naruto. He shook his head. "Anyway," he tossed the item Kakashi had marked on the map at said Junin, "here. No one saw us. He snickered. We kinda blended in with the headquarters' new paint job. Kakashi stared dumbly at the necklace in his hands. This wasn't supposed to happen for another 6 months. 6. And they did it in 9 weeks. And they broke his rules to do it. Kakashi's eyes burned a little bit, and he inhaled sharply through his nose. Well done. He beamed at them. Well done indeed. Sakura simply plopped the photos in his hand in response. Kakashi's forgotten guffaw exploded out of him, making his genin jump and a passing Junin to nearly miss the tree branch he was leaping to. Guy blinked, looking over his shoulder in stunned shock, having barely fixed his footing in order to not make a close facial encounter with Bark. Guy's eyes got misty as his genin came to a stop alongside him. What is it, Guy-sensei? Lee's head whipped around to see what had brought their boisterous teacher to a halt. An oddly subdued but tender smile flitted across the eccentric man's visage. Tenten and Neji exchanged wary looks. Lee was still squinting into the foliage. It's a bountiful day, boomed Guy, fist rocketing up into the air and straight through the thick branch above him. He ignored it as it fell loudly to the ground and instead turned a normal for him tearful gaze on his genin. It's a wonderful day indeed. We must express our own youth just as vigorously. And then he took off through the trees at a maddening pace. Tenten groaned, Neji grit his teeth, and Lee's eyes sparkled as they all chased after their, roaring about youth, sensei. We are trash, wailed Team 7 as they groveled at Kakashi's feet. Kakashi stood, arms crossed, scowling at them. What lesson did we learn today? The 3 genin were covered in soot. Naruto's nose was still bleeding a bit, but thankfully Sakura had set it straight again. Sakura herself was sporting a ragged hack job of an impromptu haircut, as well as missing half of her left eyebrow. Sasuke was still smoking a bit, and his right arm was resting in a sling. Sakura sniffled, looking up at the silver-haired Junin with wet eyes. Never leave a teammate behind. And that we are so below your level that it is laughable to a ridiculous degree, added Sasuke, wincing as he bowed low again and pain lanced through his arm. Kakashi's eye turned to the blonde trembling on the left. And you? We didn't know, burst Naruto, honest to Kami, tears falling down his whiskered cheeks. Kakashi sighed, slouching as his angry visage faded away. What have I been teaching you? You didn't even think before you attacked. Do you have any idea how lucky you are that the Hokage hasn't written us all up for insubordination and dishonorable conduct? His poor genin were so morose that Kakashi didn't have the heart to be too mean. He'd already put them through the ringer anyway. Honestly, we should be super grateful that all he's making you do is perform extra D-rank missions and insists that I ensure you learn proper protocol for entering the Hokage's office. All 3 genin wins. We're sorry, murmured Sakura. Sasuke and Naruto nodded beside her as they all stared glumly at his feet. He sighed again, moving to sit down before them. He ruffled their hair, Sakura being last as she was in the middle. Normally I would be super proud of your excellent reaction time. However, you didn't properly assess the situation before you went ballistic. He cracked a grin. It was, however, quite amusing that Ibiki, of all people, handed me a card applauding you for your amusing and out-of-the-box methods. I swear I heard him snort as he was walking away. Kakashi gazed thoughtfully up at the sky and scratched at his jaw. I don't think anyone else has gotten him to crack like that. His genin gave him small hesitant smiles. I smiled at them. Really, other than the Hokage threatening to skewer me and hang my entrails from the Hokage monument, it was quite a performance. 4 hours earlier, Team 7's genin were excited. They'd just finished another 2D ranks for the day and were impatiently waiting for Kakashi to return from wherever he went. He'd promised them some new sort of training, and though they knew to be wary, they were also pumped about it. Kakashi's methods were unorthodox, but they were impressively effective. Kakashi proofed into the training ground and held up a hand in greeting. Change of plans. The Hokage summoned us. The genin groaned but followed obediently as Kakashi turned to head towards the tower. Any idea what to expect? Asked Sasuke, hands in his pockets as his thoughtful gaze turned closed off and irritable as soon as they crossed over the invisible threshold of their private training ground. Naruto's relaxed gait immediately became bouncy as the blonde practically vibrated in place. "Are we getting another C rank?" he asked loudly, the over-enthusiasm making Sakura wince. Kakashi chuckled. "We'll see when we get there." Naruto groaned theatrically as Sakura berated him. The walk always seemed to take forever when they had to pretend like this. It was so much easier when they were all disguised and moved through town with ease. They only had to do this when Kakashi was with them. The rest of the time they pretty much treated like extra training and went almost everywhere under a henge. Their favorite disguise was of 3 civilian kids who had lower working class families and were often left unsupervised. Sasuke had been against it at first. Somehow Sakura had convinced him and Naruto to pretend to be brothers. In a weird twist of fate, Sasuke had to pretend to be the older brother, mostly because he was taller than Naruto and Kakashi's henge height rule was strictly obeyed. The first 2 weeks of the disguise had been very hard to hold up. Sasuke had so many mixed feelings about Itachi, he wasn't quite sure what to do with himself as an older sibling. It didn't help that Naruto played the younger brother with perfection, always coming to Ni-san for everything. Naruto's Toro-kun act was brilliant. Toro-kun was all gentle sweet smiles and naive wonder. His dark brown hair was adorably mussed, and his big brown eyes positively soulful. Sasuke, after much twitching and hidden horror, eventually decided to act like he'd always wished Itachi had. It had, not that Sasuke would ever admit it aloud, but it had been kinda cathartic. It was kind of nice to feel the weight of responsibility over a younger sibling. Sasuke found himself standing straighter, feeling more protective, and far more open than he'd been for years. Sakura's Kai-chan was just icing on the cake. She played Toro-kun and Taku-kun's favorite cousin. She was everything that Sakura never got the chance to be. Kai-chan was a loud, almost to the point of obnoxious, tomboy who goaded her cousins into anything and everything she could think of. She was their ringleader and mischief maker. Taku-kun found himself having to be the voice of reason and play mediator when they inevitably got themselves into trouble, which was rather often, really. It was so different to their usual roles, it was like a breath of fresh air. All 3 of them had grown quite a lot because of it, and Sasuke knew he would forever have a soft spot for their little Civi trio, as they called it. Sasuke blinked, realizing they were at the base of the tower. When his eyes darted to his team, Kakashi gave him a subtle but knowing smile. Sasuke hunched a little more in on himself to hide the faint upwards lift of his lips. As per Naruto's normal style, as soon as they reached the doors to Hiruzen's office, the blonde barged right in with a boisterous greeting that left Sasuke's ears ringing. "Hey old man. Wah." And that is exactly the moment that Team 7 saw 2 very familiar figures standing to the left of Hiruzen's desk. Kakashi hardly shifted, his lazy exterior completely belying the fact he was poised to throw kunai at the 2 figures' jugulars. Before Kakashi could open his mouth to greet the Hokage and indirectly ask what the hell was going on, his cute little genin moved. "Mole!" shouted Naruto. Zabuza barely had time to yell a profanity before 2 Narutos. Kakashi had no idea where the second one even came from. He assumed it was another Heng clone that Naruto apparently carried around on principle now. Dove forward straight through the floor. Before Kakashi could tell the blonde to stand down, Zabuza was in a familiar predicament, where his torso was quite solidly stuck in the floor. Unbeknownst to Kakashi, Zabuza's feet were flailing around quite comically from the ceiling below. Both Ibiki and Shikaku were staring up at Zabuza's and Haku's kicking limbs with bemusement while 2 Narutos high-fived upside down before barreling out of the conveniently nearby open window. It lasted all of a breath before Sakura and Sasuke charged forward and landed impressive haymakers on the 2 mist ninjas' heads and their struggling came to a stop. Both unfurled a scroll, bit their thumbs, and ran them across the seals written within. As soon as the scrolls started to glow, Both genin dropped them on the missing nin and fake hunter nin before bailing out the window behind Hiruzen's desk. Hiruzen blinked. Kakashi blinked. Ibiki and Shikaku blinked up at them through the holes where the two ninja had been. The ANBU hidden in the room snarked as they tried to suppress their laughter as the dreaded demon of the mist got thumped by a couple genin. Kakashi hesitantly cleared his throat. Yo. Hiruzen's wooden desk creaked ominously as the room was flooded with a terrifying amount of ki. Kakashi, Hiruzen said smoothly. Kakashi started sweating bullets. His cute little genin had left him. They were totally getting a remedial lesson if he survived this. Present time. Kakashi clapped, ignoring his rather tattered-looking uniform, courtesy of Hiruzen. So, that brings up something I wanted to ask. Naruto, the floor. Naruto blinked. Oh, well, it's made of clay, right? It's just like using the headhunter jutsu with rock. He shrugged blithely. You just gotta wiggle between any wooden beams if they're there. Naruto could walk through walls. Kakashi had just been given this gift too. Kakashi felt a bit like doing the insane and challenging guy to a contest. Cuz Kakashi can walk through walls. None of his genin reacted as Kakashi started cackling madly and the area around him lit up with flashes of lightning and boomed ominously. They were getting used to this kind of reaction when Naruto broke some unwritten ninja rule. Second, Kakashi continued, as if he hadn't just acted like a mad scientist, what was the whole mole thing? All three genin looked at him like he was clearly missing something obvious. It's our attack formation, whack-a-mole, Sakura said carefully. You know, where the mole pops its head up from underground and then you smack it on the head. Sasuke shrugged. It's faster to say mole, though. Conveniently confuses the enemy too, because they think we're talking about a spy. Really, sensei, you use it all the time. It's very useful, Naruto finished, nodding sagely. Well, when put that way, thought Kakashi. Oh. Naruto thumped a fist into his palm. He then rooted around in his pocket before tossing something to Kakashi. One of my clones decided to take a picture, cause he thought it was prank-worthy. Kakashi was given the awesome blessing of a forever imprinted image of Zabuza's and Haku's legs dangling from the ceiling in the tower. Kakashi's collection was starting to look quite impressive. Yo. Kakashi held up a hand blandly. Team 7 fell into formation before him immediately. Hey sensei, Sakura shifted uncomfortably. Are we out of the running for the Chunin exams? She blushed a bit when his lone eye turned to her. I mean, after what we did in the Hokage's office, I wasn't sure if we were barred this go-round. She was sporting a rather cute pixie cut. It made her look even younger than usual, especially with her headband still tied up on top her head. She was literally going to get away with murder, and it wouldn't have anything to do with the awesome skills he'd been training them in. What makes you think you were in it to begin with? Kakashi asked, sounding faintly amused. Oh, remarked Naruto, looking a bit ill and a flash of hurt in his eyes that he buried quickly. Sasuke looked like he was stuck between a pout and bitter resignation. Sakura's entire face simply went blank. It was a bit unnerving actually. Kakashi chuckled. Ma, I'm just kidding. I had been thinking about entering you. I smiled. How did you find out they were happening? Sakura and Sasuke immediately pointed to the blonde. He has eyes and ears pretty much everywhere, remarked Sakura. He was so excited about how much he was learning, he makes 24 clones to hide around the village now. She rolled her eyes. 5 of them even have jobs. Kakashi's head tilted a bit as he turned Naruto's oddly bashful expression. Oh, Naruto scuffed the ground with his toe. When they don't know it's me, people talk. He looked up at Kakashi through his bangs. There was a tinge of suppressed excitement in his bright blue eyes. There's so much I never knew about. Kakashi was never a hugger, but his cute little genin almost made him want to become one. They were too darned adorable. That's great, Naruto. I'm glad you're learning a lot. He paused. Jobs. Naruto's teeth flashed. Yup. It's so cool. One of the jobs, I get to help at a weapons shop. There are some really awesome weapons out there. And learning about the different quality is awesome too. Naruto danced a bit in place, too excited to fully contain his bubbling energy. There's another that I get to work with a glass blower. It's super neat. His grin was megawatt. The other three aren't that fun, but honestly it helps me pay for rent. Kakashi winced internally. He'd forgotten that Naruto didn't get the orphan allowance anymore. He'd also forgotten that the complex tended to charge Naruto more than other tenants. The Hokage couldn't step in because, despite his irritation about it, the owner was correct. Naruto's presence had driven a lot of potential tenants away. Charging him extra to cover the difference was something the Hokage couldn't rightfully fight without causing problems. The best he could do was make the extra cost reasonable. That did, however, mean that an orphan in his pre-teens was fighting an uphill battle just to remain financially stable. Did you? Started Kakashi, hesitant because he wasn't quite sure how to offer to help. Naruto, miraculously, knew exactly what he was thinking. Those daily observations of people were getting downright scary accurate. Don't worry, Kakashi-sensei. I've been managing my money better. The old lady at the baths helped me, he scratched his head, or rather helped one of my clones. She explained how I should be spending and saving. And, well, because I can use a hanged clone to get supplies, costs have been less. He shrugged. I'm doing okay. Kakashi let out a relieved breath. It still bothered him Naruto had to work thrice as hard as his peers to get by, but he was glad the plucky blonde was making it work. Back to your comment on the Chunin exams, the Hokage has been generous enough to still allow me to decide. He smiled at their radiant expressions. However, he warned, that means you're going to have to prove to me you deserve it. He winced. Your escapades with the Inuzuka clan are not helping your case. Sasuke huffed. That's not fair. That's training. Kakashi waved a bored hand. Training generally means you have a goal you're working towards improving. All I've heard is a barrage of complaints about you three breaking and entering without permission. He internally snickered. He'd also heard how effectively that Tsume roughed his genin up before booting them out of the compound. But sensei, we're working on a new seal. We don't have anywhere else to test it. Sakura looked both imploring and frustrated. New seal. That could be rather dangerous, more so knowing his genin. What are you trying to accomplish? Sent. Sasuke said flatly. When we've been doing our stealth missions, we've noticed the sent away soap isn't reliable. We were trying to find a way to either mask our scent or rid ourselves of it entirely. We got the idea off the chakra suppression seals that you tattooed onto our shoulders. He shrugged. Sakura and Naruto tried to find anything similar by camping out in the library for several weeks while I discreetly asked around. We couldn't find anything. Our next best solution was to try and create a seal of our own. He shuddered. It has proven ineffective so far. Well, what do you have? Sakura touched the seal on the new bracers she started wearing a month ago. Out popped a notebook that looked to be decently full of notes. She flipped through several pages before handing it to the silver-haired Junin. This is where we started. He lifted a questioning eyebrow. Sakura waved him off. We only move on when we finish a previous seal. The ones in there before that were ones you taught us and we tinkered with a bit to see if we could change or improve them. She shuddered. Naruto's clones test them for us. She gave him a sheepish look. Sometimes the results are hazardous. The new swamp in Training Ground 10? He asked, moving his headband to scan their notes with his Sharingan. And the fire in Training Ground 43, added Sasuke. Naruto sighed. The new cave in the mountain by Training